Ash smothered the sky. Smoke coiled from distant craters, blotting out what remained of the stars. In the dead hush that followed the battle's end, a woman crouched among the ruin, silent, still, otherworldly. Her eyes, pale like frozen moons, scanned the field of broken bodies. No tears marked her face. She had no use for human grief. She wasn't one of them. Zalara moved with uncanny grace, boots barely disturbing the dust as she searched for signs of life. Her long copper hair clung to her armor, matted with soot and blood. She paused beside a collapsed wall of concrete and steel, hand resting over the scarred insignia on her shoulder, a faded symbol of her people, long since scorched into treason. A cough echoed from the rubble. She turned sharply. Buried beneath debris, a soldier stirred. His breath was ragged, shallow, but stubborn. Zalara knelt, shoving aside slabs of rock as easily as if they were paper. The man beneath them was human, tall, battle-hardened, blood streaked across his temple. His uniform was torn but familiar, marked with the emblem of the United Coalition. She recognized him instantly. Eli Ward. She had first seen him weeks ago, during a raid meant to end in slaughter. Instead, it ended in hesitation. His hesitation. He had found her then, standing over a dying comrade, and raised his weapon with purpose. But something in her expression, or perhaps the way she hadn't moved to strike, made him falter. That moment had become an axis for everything that followed. Now, here he was again, half dead in the wake of another pointless victory. His eyelids fluttered. He groaned. She pressed 2 fingers to his pulse. Weak, erratic. He didn't have long. "You're still breathing," she whispered, as if surprised. Zalara, his voice was dry, brittle as the wind. "Didn't think you'd still be here." "Neither did I." She pulled a small vial from her belt, cracking it open beneath his nose. The bitter stimulant jerked him more awake, but the pain in his eyes made her flinch. He tried to sit up, failed, and collapsed with a groan. "This is bad," he muttered. "They said it would be clean. Just one push. Finish it." "They lied," she said, voice devoid of judgment. He blinked at her. "You're not supposed to be here." She gave a half-smile. "Neither are you." In silence, she hoisted him into a sitting position, carefully checking for fractures. There were too many wounds to count. Internal bleeding likely. He was a soldier, stubborn and too proud to die. But even that had limits. A rumble of distant artillery reminded her the war was not yet done. "I'll get you back," she said. No, his hand caught hers. "Don't waste the time. Not on me." "You're not a waste." "Everyone's dying, Zalara. This doesn't change anything." "It might," she said, and for a heartbeat, her voice broke. They had fought together. Not side by side at first, but near enough, in dark corridors of ruined cities, in ambushes turned rescues. Her intelligence had saved more lives than her fangs had ever taken. Slowly, trust had begun to bloom in the cracks of suspicion. But it was trust tempered by necessity, fragile, and always on the edge of breaking. He saw something in her others didn't. A conscience. I will not rule by blood, but by choice. "Why did you really stay?" he asked. She hesitated. Her people had once ruled entire systems, their empire eternal. But hunger corrupted them. Immortality demanded blood, and not all were willing to pay the price. She had left when she saw the abyss ahead, when she realized her people had become parasites, not protectors. Earth had been a last hope. And humans reminded her of who her kind used to be. Flawed, yes, but fighting for more than survival. "I stayed for the same reason you keep breathing," she said. "Because it's not over. Because it can still mean something." He chuckled weakly. "You talk like a poet." "You bleed like one," she countered. But her smile faded as she felt his pulse dip again. This was no longer a wound she could bandage. She could feel the end curling around him like smoke. Eli's eyes fluttered. "You should run. They'll come looking." "I'm not leaving." "Then help me die fast." She looked down at her gloved hands. Clench them. There was a law, one her kind never broke, not even the traitors. The sharing of blood was sacred, a ritual older than memory. To give it to a human meant not only changing them, but damning them. Immortality came with a hunger that never faded. The thirst never stopped. But Eli had saved her more than once. He had looked at her not with fear, but with defiance, and sometimes kindness. She opened her wrist with a sharp claw. "What are you doing?" he rasped. "I'm giving you a choice. You said it would make me like you." "No," she said. "It will make you something new. You may hate me for it, but you'll live." His gaze flicked to the blood beating on her pale skin. It shimmered faintly, unnaturally. "I don't want to be a monster." "Then don't be. Be better." He didn't answer. She touched her wrist to his mouth. For a moment, nothing happened. Then he convulsed. His body jerked, eyes wide with pain and confusion, as the blood surged through him. Muscles tightened, bones realigned. His scream was raw, torn from a soul unprepared for eternity. She held him through it. When it ended, he collapsed into her arms, breathing fast but full. Alive. "I hate you," he gasped. "I know." "You saved me." "I know." They stayed there in the smoking silence, the battlefield yawning out before them. Somewhere far away, the war still raged. But here, among the dead, a different kind of future had just been born, and it would never die. Eli stood at the edge of the command platform, watching the digital map shimmer with life. Enemy movements pulsed in red across the screen, advancing, retreating, reshaping like a living organism adapting to pain. Every inch of ground gained bled men dry. He gripped the railing, knuckles white. Behind him, voices argued. Strategists, generals, analysts, they all had opinions, none of them solutions. "She's a liability," General Harrow snapped, pacing with practiced indignation. "We don't even know what she really wants. For all we know, she's feeding intel back to her people. She's the only reason we're not dead," Eli said without turning. "Zalara has risked more for us than any of your clean-cut heroes." Harrow scoffed. "You've been compromised, Commander." "Compromised?" Eli turned, fire in his eyes. "She saved your son's convoy at Zeta Pass. Remember that." The room quieted. They all remembered. Zalara's betrayal of her own kind had turned the tide on several occasions. But trust, Eli had learned, was a currency always in deficit among soldiers. "Her intelligence helped us map the hive tunnels," he continued. "If we launch now, we catch them while they're regrowing. If we wait, we lose that window. Even if she's right, we'll never hold the territory," another officer muttered. "It's a suicide run." "Then let's make sure it's not," Eli said. "Give me the squad. I'll lead the breach." No one objected. They had run out of better ideas. 2 hours later, the storm began. Rain lashed the ground like falling needles, soaking the craters into mud and blood. Drops steamed off Zalara's skin as she crouched at the front line, face turned toward the wind. Her armor gleamed black beneath the gloom, patched and scorched from battles past. "You don't have to come," Eli said, kneeling beside her. "You've done enough." She looked at him, impassive. "I didn't come for them." He didn't ask who she meant. He already knew. The charge hit just before dawn. Explosions lit the trench lines, bursts of fire against a field of ruin. Eli moved with machine precision, barking commands, dodging plasma fire. Zalara was a blur beside him, faster than human sight could track. Where she passed, enemy soldiers fell before they even realized they were dying. They breached the first bunker by mid-morning, only to find its shell empty, decoyed. A trap. The second they entered the main corridor, the walls sealed behind them. Gas hissed from hidden vents. Eli's mask jammed. Soldiers choked. Panic spread like flame. Then she moved. Zalara hurled herself into the gas stream, claws slicing through the wall as she tore out the ventilation unit. Her eyes burned red, her scream raw and ancient as she forced the toxin to burn up in flame. The blast knocked her back against the steel wall. Eli ran to her, coughing. "You okay?" She nodded, though blood trickled from her mouth. "They knew we were coming," which meant someone had told them. They fought their way out with fewer men than they brought in. The retreat was chaos. What should have been a victory became a massacre. Back at base, Harrow was waiting. You led our people into a slaughter. Eli's uniform was still soaked with the blood of men he couldn't save. He didn't have the patience for ceremony. We were betrayed. You mean she betrayed us? Zalara stepped forward, her voice sharp. If I'd wanted you dead, General, you'd already be rotting. Harrow's pistol was drawn before Eli could stop him. The blast rang out, sharp and final. It never hit her. Eli's body jerked from the impact, eyes wide with shock as he crumpled to the floor, the round embedded in his side. Zalara didn't scream. She simply moved. Her hand closed around Harrow's throat before he could fire again. He gasped as his feet lifted off the ground. You dare shoot him? She hissed, fangs flashing. After everything he's done to protect you? Zalara, don't. Eli croaked from the ground, pain squeezing his voice. He's not worth it. She dropped Harrow like refuse, stepping away, chest heaving. Eli was rushed into surgery. The bullet hadn't killed him. Again. But it reminded her that his body, though immortal, was still vulnerable to pain, to damage, to moments of weakness. She stayed by his side through the night, motionless, as the machines worked to repair what the war had broken. When he woke, his voice was rough. Did you kill him? No. Pity? He tried to smile. It broke her heart. You shouldn't have shielded me, she said. You're not invincible. He looked at her, eyes tired but bright. Neither are you. They said little else that night, but something shifted, not just between them, but in the air, like a fault line beginning to crack. The next day, orders came. Zalara was to be confined, not imprisoned yet, but grounded from the field, monitored, questioned. Politics had decided she was a threat too great to be left unsupervised. It didn't matter how many lives she'd saved. She wasn't human. That was enough. Eli protested, but he was too injured to lead. Command passed others. Less bold, more cautious. Men who had not bled with her. The offensive was shelved. She let them cuff her, without resistance. Her eyes found Eli's as they led her away. I'll fix this, he promised. You'd better, she said. You're the only reason I haven't killed someone today. 2 days passed in silence. Then the alarm sounded. An alien fleet descended from orbit, larger than any previous incursion. It wasn't a raid. It was an annihilation. The base exploded in red warning lights. Walls shook. Sirens wailed. Chaos returned. Eli ripped out his .4. Pain be damned. He stole a rifle, limped through smoke and screaming until he reached the detention wing. She was already free. Bodies lay scattered behind her, unconscious but breathing. She'd kept her promise. Ready? He asked. She tilted her head. Are you? They made it to the surface together. The sky burned. Dropships rained fire onto bunkers. Friends died screaming in the mud. It was all too familiar. In the middle of the field, a blast sent them flying. Eli hit the ground hard. Pain flared through his ribs. When he looked up, she was on her knees beside him. His chest was a mess of blood and ruined armor. The wound smoked, something deep and vital torn apart. She stared down at him, shaking. No, she whispered. Guess I got lucky twice. He tried to joke, but the words failed. Don't speak. Not the worst way to go. Looking at you. Tears welled in her eyes. This time, she didn't fight them. You already saved me once, he murmured. Don't make it count for nothing. She bit her lip until it bled. He reached up, fingers brushing her jaw. Do it again. She hesitated. If you die, she said, voice trembling, I will burn this world to ashes. Then save it, through me. The second time she gave him blood, it wasn't an act of rebellion. It was love. As the world tore itself apart around them, she poured eternity into his body. Fire surged through his veins. He arched off the ground, screaming as the transformation consumed him once more. But this time he didn't collapse. He stood, eyes glowing like hers. Alive, immortal, changed. Together, they turned toward the battlefield. It was far from over. The night after the second blood binding, the world felt different. The air was heavier, laden with a tension that clung to the skin and whispered warnings no one wanted to hear. Eli stood at the edge of the scorched field, ash swirling around his boots, the wind carrying the distant howls of the dying. His eyes, once mortal, now burned with low amber light, casting faint illumination on the soaked earth. Zalara watched him from the shadows of a broken wall, arms crossed, her expression unreadable. He hadn't spoken much since the transformation, not out of confusion or fear. No, Eli accepted the change more easily than most ever would, but because something fundamental had shifted. He wasn't just changed. He was evolving. "I can hear them," he said without turning. "Their thoughts, their fear, even their command signals." Zalara stepped closer, her voice cautious. "The blood has awakened latent senses. You're not fully turned, but you're not just human anymore." He nodded. "I don't feel pain like I used to. Or maybe I just don't fear it." "That's the first illusion," she said, gaze steady. "You're not invincible. You're borrowed time." They left the ruins that night and returned to the underground command node, the last functioning center of the resistance. What remained of the human military had been driven into bunkers and tunnels, steel mazes buried beneath mountains. Hope flickered only in the places where Eli and Zalara still breathed. Inside the command node, suspicion awaited them. Commandant Merrick, a grizzled war tactician with face carved by a lifetime of retreat, addressed them with veiled contempt. "You were ordered to remain isolated. Instead, you tampered with alien biology and violated containment protocols." "Protocols meaningless when you're on the brink of extinction," Eli replied, arms folded, voice low and calm. "She made you one of them." "She made me better," Eli snapped, stepping forward. "And unless you want to watch your last battalion die screaming, you'll stop whining and listen." The silence in the chamber crackled. Eli unfurled a tactical map, fingers moving with unnatural speed. "I intercepted the command frequencies from the hive leaders. They're not expecting a counteroffensive from this quadrant. We hit them in 4 hours here," he jabbed a point, "before they regroup from the orbital assault." "Even if we believe you," Merrick said slowly, "how do you expect to punch through an entire battalion?" Zalara's eyes gleamed. "Because we're going first. And we don't need to punch through. We bleed them from within." It was insanity. It was genius. And it was their only shot. As the assault hour neared, Eli stood alone in the armory. He ran his fingers across his rifle, but it felt distant now, like a relic from another life. He didn't need it. Not really. His strength had changed. He moved faster, thought clearer, reacted before threats even materialized. It scared him how natural it felt. Zalara entered, silent as mist. "Your heartbeat is different." "I feel awake," he said, "like my blood is a song I finally understand." She approached, hesitating only a second before placing her hand against his chest. "It's not just blood. It's memory. Every vampire who's ever lived, every war we fought, every betrayal, it echoes in you now." "Then I'll use it," he said, "to end this." The raid began beneath a broken sky. Eli and Zalara moved like living shadows through the hive trench networks. Alien sentries didn't stand a chance. Their speed was unmatched, their strikes silent. As they progressed, Eli began to sense the structure of the hive, not just physically, but psychically. A web of emotion, a symphony of pulses that let him feel where each creature was, how they moved, what they feared. "They're afraid of you," Zalara murmured as they descended into the command nest. "They recognize what you become. I'm not one of them. But you're not one of us either." That truth hung between them. Still, they pressed on. At the core of the hive, a biological throne pulsed with grotesque life. It was not a seat. It was a mind, a sentient nexus of the alien intelligence, wrapped in tendrils and eyes that blinked in unison. It felt them approach. Hybrid. The voice pulsed through Eli's mind. "Defiler, your kind was meant to kneel." "I don't kneel," Eli said aloud, and drove his blade into the heart of the throne. The hive shrieked. All across the battlefield, alien soldiers staggered. The psychic scream disrupted their movements, turned their coordination to chaos. Human troops pushed forward, emboldened by the sudden break in the tide. Zalara stood over the dying nexus, face set in stone. "This won't kill them all." "No," Eli agreed, "but it will break their hold." and we can keep breaking them. Back at the command node, Merrick greeted their return with a mix of awe and horror. You crippled a hive center with 2 people. No, Eli said, with 1 hybrid and 1 traitor. Zalara smiled without warmth. Maybe labels don't matter anymore. Merrick hesitated, then nodded. We'll follow your lead. They had no other choice. But victory came with cost. That night, in the quiet of a ruined observation deck, Eli stood staring at the stars. Zalara joined him, silent for a while. You feel it, don't you? She finally said. The hunger. He nodded. It's not just about blood. It's power, memory, connection. Like I want to reach into the heart of the world and hold it still. She exhaled. You'll have to fight that. Always. I'm not afraid. You should be. Their eyes met. 2 beings caught between what they were and what they were becoming. Whatever I turn into, Eli said, promise me you'll stop me if I lose myself. Zalara looked away. I've already failed you once. Then don't fail me again. She didn't promise. She didn't need to. The war was far from over. But something new had risen in the ashes. Not a soldier, not a vampire, not a god, a hybrid, a bridge between worlds, a weapon of hope, and maybe, in time, something more. Dawn broke cold and red, and the enemy stirred again. The ruins of Auric Prime smoldered beneath a bruised sky, its fractured towers stretching like dead fingers into the haze. Eli stood amid the rubble, ash clinging to his skin, the stench of scorched metal and charred flesh thick in his lungs. Around him, the dead lay in silence, human, alien, and those who were no longer entirely either. He no longer heard the screams, not because they had ceased, but because his mind filtered them out the way one tunes out static. Too much noise led to madness. Zalara approached from the east, her dark armor streaked with blood not her own, her eyes as unreadable as ever. Her stride was calm, but there was a tension beneath it, subtle, coiled like a wire ready to snap. She stopped a few feet away from Eli, gaze drifting over the carnage. They expected us to hesitate, she said, her voice low. We didn't. That's why we won. Eli didn't answer. He knelt, pressing his palm against a fallen soldier's chest. The man's insignia marked him as one of the Northern Coalition's elite. Young, too young. Eli's hand trembled, just a little. Zalara knelt beside him. You can't carry them all. I already do, he said softly. They had crushed the hive cluster. It had taken days of coordinated strikes, leveraging both human ingenuity and alien instinct. Eli had led the charge, guided by something deeper than vision. An echo in the blood, a resonance that pulled him toward weak points in their enemy's structure like a predator sensing pulse beneath skin. He was no longer merely strategic. He was prophetic, but with each victory came a price. His dreams had begun to fray. He no longer remembered his mother's voice. The scent of rain on steel, the lull of Earth's gravity. Those memories faded beneath newer ones that didn't belong to him. Ancient memories of caverns lit by bioflames. Ceremonies spoken in a language of pulses and pheromones. Wars fought in the dark between rival hives. Endless, cold, merciless. Zalara had warned him. He hadn't listened enough. You're slipping, she said quietly, almost gently. He stood. I can't afford to stop. Not now. We're close. To what? She asked. Victory? Or becoming what they are? He turned to face her. What there doesn't scare me. What will be if we don't win? That's what should scare you. She said nothing, but her silence spoke volumes. Later that night, the council convened in what had once been a transport bay, now repurposed as a war room. Holograms flicker across scorched metal walls, mapping the remaining hives, calculating predicted reinforcements. There were fewer voices now. Too many generals had fallen. The survivors watched Eli with a mix of awe and fear. We have one target left, he said, standing before projection. The source. The alpha mind. Destroy it and the network collapses. You mean your network? One man said. Commander Voss, a scarred veteran who had lost half his team in the orbital siege. You feel them, don't you? You think like them. I understand them, Eli corrected. That's why we can win. Voss didn't flinch. What happens when the war is over and you still understand them better than us? Zalara stepped forward, voice sharp. Then pray he keeps choosing your side. Eli raised a hand. Enough. We don't have the luxury of suspicion. Not now. But the question lingered, even as plans were laid. 3 nights later, the final offensive began. They descended into the canyon known as Vyre Scar, where the Alpha Mind nested, an ancient creature encased in a cathedral of bone and stone, guarded by thousands, perhaps millions of highborn. It was more than a stronghold. It was the birthplace of their kind. Eli led the vanguard. The enemy swarmed, a tide of clicking mandibles and shrieking limbs. But he moved like fire through a forest, lethal, wild, unstoppable. Zalara fought beside him. Fluid and feral, their synergy now something closer to dance than combat. Every strike was precise. Every motion mirrored. They were twin weapons sharpened by pain, loss, and a bond that no longer needed words. Inside the central chamber, the Alpha Mind awaited. It was colossal, suspended in the air by organic cables, its many eyes closed in meditation. Its body pulsed with raw psychic energy, the air vibrating with a frequency that made bones ache. Eli stepped forward alone. Child of blood. The creature whispered into his mind. You are not theirs. You never were. He gritted his teeth. I chose this. You chose survival. You will choose us again. It showed him visions of peace, of unity, of a galaxy without war. But behind the illusion was control, obedience, erasure of will. Eli raised his hand. The blood in his veins surged with power. No, he said. I remember who I am. He struck. A wave of energy tore through the chamber. The Alpha Mind screamed. Outside, Hive soldiers spasmed, lost without command. Zalara shielded herself as the walls fractured. The entire mountain trembled. Eli collapsed as the nexus exploded in light. When he opened his eyes, the mind was gone. The silence that followed was not peaceful. It was hollow. He stumbled to his feet. Zalara caught him. It's done, he said. No, she whispered. It's only beginning. Back on the surface, news spread fast. The hives were breaking. Without the Alpha Mind, their cohesion dissolved. Victory was declared. Celebrations erupted. But Eli did not return to crowds. He sat alone in the observation tower, staring at the stars, the weight of it all pressing down like gravity. Zalara found him there. You did what no one else could, she said. At what cost? He asked. She sat beside him. You're still you. He looked at her, weary. Am I? She hesitated, then reached for his hand. If you weren't, you wouldn't ask. The silence between them was softer this time. Outside, the remnants of the world waited to be rebuilt. Eli knew his journey wasn't over. The war might have ended, but something else had begun. Something darker. Something he would need to face without the certainty of blood or battle. But in that moment, sitting beside the only person who truly understood what he'd become, he allowed himself something rare. Stillness, even if just for a breath, because he knew the next storm was coming.